I want to move on to a network that we've never, ever, ever talked about on this channel that I am fired up to talk about, and that is IOTA. These guys are releasing their Shimmer network on top of the IOTA Tangle. Clay and I have had 2 or 3 calls with Dom, who is like, I love Dom. This dude is like, he is the crypto ethos in a package. And so, but the tech is very, very cool. Beavis, I know that you've been chatting a lot with these guys. Clay, can you like explain to me what Shimmer Network is? And then I want to talk to the Phantom guys that are watching, because this is ground zero level of a brand new network that's about to launch.
Yeah. I mean, Beavis, do you want to give a tech over? I mean, what I will say, if you do want to, what I will say is people talk about a first mover advantage. And I would argue in this space, there's a lot, like Shimmer's been around, IOTA's been around. So for people that don't know sort of the Shimmer IOTA connection, IOTA's been around since probably 2012. 2016. But
they were building before that.
That token was huge in the 2017 bull run. So they've been around for a long time. So they've been sitting on the sidelines saying, what can we build that's going to make a game-changing impact across the space? So there's a ton of features that I want to talk through that they're building. That's pretty incredible. But Beavis, do you want to go into any, like, I think you're building on it, aren't you? So do you want to talk about any of the technical stuff, or should I run through
You giving away secrets, Clay?
What do you mean?
I'm not doing anything, but you're going to jail. Yeah, I mean,
Twitter jail.
The thing about the blockchain space, and in all of our like network consulting and all of our like marching up to these all these foundations and talking, it's like being first to market matters when it comes to name recognition. And the thing about IOTA is they were very early to market, and they have a fair amount of name recognition. So the thing about EVM chains, EVM spin-off chains, is when so much of this adoption is driven by incentives, and when so much of this adoption is driven by pumping money into the network and building partnerships, then being second to market and everybody rushing to this chain and being the next chain that people rush into, really, like, your strategy at that point is, can we make the yields competitive? Can we make the yields scale? And can we get people to stick? And that's kind of what the narrative of IOTA and Shimmer has been. They've been sitting back. They've been watching all this EVM business, all this L1 business, all 2021. And they're like, okay, this isn't sustainable. This isn't necessarily ethical. How can we create an interoperable EVM solution / assembly layer where we can kind of suit every use case with a single EVM chain? And that's kind of where they're coming from with Shimmer. And it's kind of like, the thing I like about IOTA is they take a similar approach to us, where they're like, we don't need to rush to market. We need to have the best product possible. And that's where I see Shimmer eventually being. It's in beta right now, but the team behind it and the ideas that drive it and the ethos that drives it makes probably the most sense to me as any. So a focus on interoperability. So it can be an L2, it can be an L1. It can plug into any kind of piece of tech out there. And that's thanks to the assembly layer. And then on top of that, you have the EVM layer. And then they're trying to make businesses and products and create tools that make them first-class citizens. So, tokens and NFTs exist on the consensus layer or on the assembly layer, as opposed to on the EVM layer. So that's erasing a ton of high volume traffic. That's giving users a way to transact very cheaply, built on IOTA tech. So
is another way of saying that is that they don't use like an ERC20 type of standard, like the way that Phantom is on the Phantom network being the native composable like token is Ethereum, how tokens will be built on top of Shimmer.
Yeah. I mean,
or on top of IOTA.
So Shimmer is a layer 1 network that's going to get released on IOTA mainnet. And so Shimmer makes IOTA Web3 ready, basically. It's smart, it enables the smart contracts on IOTA mainnet. And then there's it's kind of a lot to keep up with, but there's Stardust protocol upgrade, which is coming. Stardust turns the Shimmer and IOTA base layer 1 into a multi-asset ledger, which basically means that anyone that builds on top of it can mint their own tokens or NFTs. These tokens, the metadata of the native tokens are immutable, whereas like ERC20 is a smart contract, so it's like a ledger within a ledger. So on Shimmer, you can feelessly mint and transfer, NFTs and native tokens. So there's no fees. There's zero fees for anything that's built from like the layer 1 to the layer 2. So if you're building on top of it, there's no fees. So, I mean, you can mint NFTs for free. And there's like other stuff too, like expiration times for transactions. So if you send a token to an invalid address, once the expiration passes, it actually comes back to you because it never got claimed. Like that's every time I send something, I kind of hover in fear that like it might go to the wrong place. I double check 8 times. Like this actually brings it back to you. Like that's incredible. And their smart contract is agnostic to the virtual machine. So it supports Rust. It supports Solidity EVM. So, I mean, there's a ton of stuff that they've done that is, I think, pretty exclusive to them. Like that's a lot.
And their community is absolutely bonkers for this getting released. Like, really, you see them on Twitter. They are so hungry for this.
Yeah, I left one thing out. So there's because of the way that the metadata of the native tokens is immutable, there's something called IOTA Tangle, and it's sort of how all the chains are connected. So all the L2s into the L1, and so it's a trustless bridge. So you don't have to bridge anything. So Tangle, I guess, is the bridge.
Tangle is the DAG, if I remember correctly. Right. I haven't looked into IOTA for a while, but back in 2017, 2016, when I was working on some other blockchain core stuff, they were one of the first DAG implementations, and they weren't a blockchain because they used an acyclic graph, and the Tangle is their blockchain effectively. So everything is going through their DAG. And I
they don't like when you call it a blockchain. I just want you to know.
It reminds me, it kind of gives me like the DAG version of Cosmos-esque vibes, how they're trying to build this and how they're trying to build interoperability as like a first-class citizen. So, I'm pumped to see it kind of roll out. I'm really, really confident in the team and their ability to learn from the mistakes of kind of their predecessors. So, I would be very interested to see them kind of emerge as a winner from this bear market. And that's what they're positioning themselves for, which is very interesting.
Beavis, curious of your perspective on this. So if their smart contract protocol is agnostic to the virtual machine, so it supports Rust and EVM, what does that do in terms of scalability as a developer? Is that first of its kind of stuff, or have you seen that other places?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what Tendermint is able to do right now. You can implement your chain in Rust, or you can implement some eWASM chain in assembly or what have you. But the really cool thing is, it means if you're like a technology firm or you're an engineering firm, you can choose the technology stack that best suits your use case. And maybe you're a firm that specializes in Rust. All your employees have built 40 applications in Rust together. You're Rust geniuses. Switching to Solidity doesn't make sense in that case. Or maybe you have a bunch of low-level assembly dudes who build everything in WebAssembly for some reason, it just gives you flexibility. And the thing is, so many things compile down into WebAssembly that if they want to create some proprietary language that nobody's going to use, they can do that. It is I think important in the future. I would say in the immediate term, it doesn't matter that much. But as blockchain becomes a solution that's actually in a CTO's kind of quiver, that's when you're going to see it matter, because then they can be maybe Rust is right for this. Maybe want to use the Cardano proprietary programming language Glow, and build a transpiler.
I
believe so.
If you think awesome. And you think about the Ronin hack, 650 million, like the fact that there's a trustless bridge and you don't have to worry about that stuff, to me is pretty awesome.
Well, the assets have to live on it already, though. It's
right. That's
it's
true.
Not like you're not gonna get Ethereum
you're not coming
on
from
IOTA
Ethereum.
without using some sort of a bridge. However, the potential exists for hundreds of layer ones to be built on top of the Tangle, is my understanding, and then communicate with each other at the base layer to move assets.
Which
right?
sounds similar to what Avalanche does with subnets in some ways.
Okay.
And what Polkadot is doing with parachains, and so they're using the Tangle as the base to create other networks.
Yeah. The funny thing is, guys, like all these networks. Oh, go ahead.
No, finish up because I'm about to move us.
All these networks realized like they built a way too powerful like blockchain. They were like, oh wow, there's not anywhere near enough adoption to need 1 million transactions per second. And it's like there's the superpower tech, and now like a bunch of companies are figuring out how can we make this fit into the market. And they've got the time and the money to do it. And really like EVM is it. EVM is the market. And I think we'll see more and more, Rust-focused markets. It's just all of your programmers use Solidity, and all the people that are interested in the space use Solidity. And, Rust is becoming more and more usable within the space. So having that option, if let's say Rust becomes the new paradigm, having that option to be like, okay, here's a Rust implementation or a Rust-friendly implementation.
And is
really nice.
I mean, that is sort of what, when we talk about the FVM, it's an optimized version of the EVM that lets you do things faster. One of the ways that you can do things faster is using, an entirely different virtual machine that might be EVM compatible. In a lot of ways, that sounds like what IOTA is doing. It sounds like what Cosmos is doing. It sounds like Avalanche is doing some similar things where, and I would need to look into like the technical details, but they're letting you take whatever programming language you want and then compile it down into bytecode that can run on their blockchain as, to implement a smart contract. And a lot of times that means that you're actually transpiling the code into assembly or WASM or something like that. So they might be doing something similar to that, but it's like Justin was saying, it means that people who have a lot of developers who know, XYZ programming language can now use that same programming language to implement a smart contract. And then the other side of that is if they do have their own engine for transpiling code and then executing it, that gives them an opportunity to optimize that execution as well.
Yeah. I would say this is probably like a question for you to fact check, Double Sharp, but does JavaScript/TypeScript, are there like transpilers into assembly?
There definitely are, because if you use the graph, you write that in assembly script, which is TypeScript that compiles down to WASM.
So now you have potentially a chain that can plug into the largest developer base ever. And to be honest, like TypeScript plus some libraries is probably good enough to be a smart contract programming languages for low security use cases. And that's like millions of developers, which is really exciting. Maybe I'm overestimating.
Is that good for Shimmer, Justin? I'm like, just so the rest of us are following along.
Next week on the Developers Corner.
Yeah, right.
We're speculating a little bit, but potentially yes. Like it means
I'm just trying to
flexibility.
A lot of people.
Yeah, when you two start having like private conversations, we need a button that just yells at you to get a room or some shit.
All right.
Double Sharp knows more than me, and he has more experience.
I'm stoked to see how this goes.
I risk sounding stupid when I say certain things.
Yeah, if you're watching, this is a team I want to work with as closely as we can, and the amount of fun I had writing a brand new network from essentially inception of the DeFi ecosystem up was like a freaking blast, and I want to do that again. And I, judging by the enthusiasm of the IOTA community, I think it will be an absolute blast. So I'm going to be following real closely, trying to learn everything I can about these guys.
Where can we learn more, Austin? Because I don't know much about it.
You could go into the IOTA. I think it's just discord.gg/IOTA, or you can go to shimmer.network. That's the Shimmer Network website. And it'll get you there. And